division. One of the things that I've really been enjoying lately in amateur radio is the M17 Project. And I'm going to explain that to you in 1 second. Mark, when you get everybody back, can you look for AC1 AWV?
He's there. He's there.
I'm here.
I'm going to need him to share the screen.
Yeah. He can do it. He can do it. He should be able to do it himself.
Awesome. All right. So, has anybody here in the room heard of M17? Just a couple. So M17 is a digital voice protocol that was created in 2019 in Poland by SP5 WWD. Wojciech Kaczmarski. He was in his local radio club and he was just talking about the different digital modes, and he was a little unhappy how they weren't able to converse with one another. So he came up with the idea of using an open source codec, which is codec 2, to create a new system, and that's where M17 was born. And as soon as we get our stuff back here, I have my partner, Steve. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, Steve is KC1AWV. He's another member of the team. Like I said earlier, it was started in Poland, the project, but it's since become a global community of like-minded amateur radio operators. I myself am the community director. Steve is in charge of all of the networking. And then we have members of the project in Belgium, Poland, Italy, Germany, Australia, west coast of the United States, and a few other places. Almost. See what happens. There we go.
You can see the screen now?
Yeah, just about. You want to jump in and say hello, Steve?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve, call sign KC1AWV. I've been a amateur radio operator up here in New Hampshire for, goodness. Actually, I'm just hitting 10 years because I did have to renew my ticket just a couple months ago. And yeah, like Ed was saying, back in 2019, Wojciech decided to start this M17 project, and he kind of picked me up in an IRC chat room talking about the project. And I think I was one of the first 4. It was Wojciech, myself, Ed, and Mike that really got involved in the project. Wojciech really chased us down and really wanted to get us involved. And yeah, I've been part of the project since then. And as Ed said, yeah, I do a lot of the systems administration and network integrations and different systems for reflectors and all that other stuff. But, I'll let Ed get into that a little bit later. But yeah, if you can see up there on the screen, it's a little blurb about how M17 came about, and then what direction that we're going in the future. So I'll hand it back over to Ed. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So one of the problems with the current digital voice protocols that are out there right now, DMR, System Fusion, and D-Star in particular, is the patented encoders that are being used. You get the newest ICOM radio running D-Star is $500–600 handheld. Only about $200 of that is just a license to license the codec on that. And that's where the issue with M17 comes in. We're using a patent-free and open source codec, codec 2, which was developed by an amateur radio operator named David Rowe in Australia. If anybody's used any digital voice on HF, you might have heard of FreeDV. It uses the same codec at a smaller bandwidth, so they use that down there. M17 is made for VHF, UHF, and above, using this patent-free codec. It's a very exciting project. There's a lot of home brewing going on. We're in the process of making our own open source handheld, which is going to be a multi-mode handheld radio. They're experimenting with it right now. It's going to be an FPGA based and probably the size of an iPhone right now. On the thicker side. Think of it an iPhone with the same physical layout, probably about a 7-inch screen on it, Steve.
On the OpenHT, I think it's a 4.3 inch.
All right, so I tell lies. So, it's gonna be, multi-mode, like I said, you're gonna be able to do AM, FM, single sideband, and, M17, the digital mode, and some of the, digital packet modes as well. Also, we are working with another group of amateurs in Italy, called Open RTX. Those gentlemen over there, they're writing custom firmware for some of the Chinese imported, DMR radios. One of the radios in particular is the MD380 by TYT. They're also rated by the Renovus RT3. That particular radio right there, with a small hardware modification and uploading of their firmware, will run the M17 project. So it's a little slow go at getting some of the manufacturers to actually adopt a new protocol, especially something where they're not going to be able to make any money off of it because it's all open source and open codec. But some of the foreign manufacturers have taken a liking to the project. We currently have a piece of hardware called the Module 17. I don't know if Steve can throw a picture of it up there. So the Module 17 is an add-on board that goes in between a 9600 board capable radio, such as we've been using the Yaesu FTM 6000. That interface is right to the back of the radio. On the side is a cheapo speaker mic. You can hook up there like a Baofeng or Kenwood style speaker mic. All the modulation and the demodulation of the protocol is handled on board right there. One of the Chinese manufacturers, LilyGo, has started manufacturing these. They pop up on their website every now and then. They're about $30 plus shipping. The only thing you have to do is add the LCD screen to it. So if you want something to experiment with, this is our version E. We're in the process of revising it to, this is 01E. We're revising it to 1.0 in the coming months. And Steve, do you have any idea what the newer features are going to be on that?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said there. It was a little too fast.
I'm from New York, I talk fast. The new features in the 1.0 board.
So the new features in the 1.0 board are quite a few, actually. We're redesigning the actual footprint and layout of the board to be a little bit larger, and it will fit inside a common Hammond manufacturing aluminum extruded case. The case itself will have a PCB cover over it. So instead of, just being relegated to the tiny little end cap, we have the full size of the board that we can play with in order to make the device a little bit larger. As you can see on the picture of the latest module here, the screen's kind of small. The buttons are really close together. The volume knob is kind of sticking out at a funny angle. But so we're relaying out everything here, but we're also introducing a new headset interconnect standard that was developed by Mark Smith over in California. Can't remember his call off the top of my head, but he created the open headset interconnect standard. And basically what that is an everybody calls them RJ45, and I need to flog myself for calling an RJ45 now, but it's an 8PHC connector. So it standardizes basically the connector that goes into the board and also the signals that are going into and coming from the board. So the idea is you can use any headset that you have, adapt it to this interconnect standard, and plug it directly into any device that supports the standard. We're not the first ones to implement the standard. I believe we are the second. There's another device out in England that kind of picked up the reins and ran with this new headset standard for your speaker mic connection, rather than looking at the Kenwood style connector that's over here in the lower left hand corner. Those pinouts are not standardized. If I go and I try to plug in like the little speaker mic from my ICOM 705 into this, it won't work because I think they swapped the microphone and speaker signals. So having a standardized connector for headsets that you can adapt to anything that you currently have is definitely something that's going to be really good for this sort of application, because anybody can bring their existing hardware and plug it right into the device and start operating. There's no significant feature updates as far as the firmware is concerned. I believe that a couple things that are being worked on are the sync on receive for the packet data that's coming in. That's being worked on. But I believe that the features for the version 1.0 are going to be the same as the 0.1e. So it's more of a design for manufacturing and design for ease of use that we're going for this 1.0. We're standardizing everything that we currently have and making it into a layout that's easier to be manufactured and easier to use for the end user. So.
Thank you, Steve. I have a question.
The question is, why are you using a wire for the headset? Why not use Bluetooth? There were so many Bluetooth headsets, fairly good quality on the market, and it would occupy a lot less space on the board. So I'm sure somebody thought about it. I want to know why.
Yeah, I don't know if we brought that up at all, Steve, the use of Bluetooth in the future?
Yeah, so the only issue that we would see is that you would need a separate device to do the PTT. Having a speaker mic or using a headset that the PTT can be built right into the wire and you don't have to have an extra device that you might lose. I know it's popular with the Anytone DMR radio. You can pair up a Bluetooth headset and then you have a little button that you use as the PTT. The STM32 does not have a Bluetooth stack built into it, nor does it have a Bluetooth transceiver. So we would actually have to add on a new device to the board. It's not significantly difficult to do that, but it may be thought of in a future revision, but not for the 1.0, because again, the 1.0, the idea is to standardize what we have from the 0.1e and bring that into a larger form factor that's easier to manufacture and get parts for. But yeah, in the future, I could see having Bluetooth on the board. It would not be built into the STM32, so we would have to have a separate module for that.
And so one of the other things, some of the past revisions, the only thing we had to change for parts due to availability due to the part shortage. So that's what brought us up to our revision 8. The really great thing about this board is this was all designed online via Discord by somebody in Germany, somebody in Belgium, somebody in Poland, and Steve and I sitting back and watching all of it. So it's, the internet has helped us a lot. It's an international project, and we've had people working on it from all corners of the world. Yeah, and that was the issue. We had a hard time with certain parts. We had to change out and we had to change the revision and change the footprints of certain components that we were using that we couldn't use anymore. But does anybody have any questions right now?
So this is basically going to be an add-on to an analog radio.
As of right now, this board right here is an add-on. Like I said earlier, there are a couple of other implementations of it. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi using a headset, not over RF, but over IP. There's a program called M-Voice, which was created by Tom Early and 7TAE out in Arizona.
So how does this differ from All-Star?
Well, this is totally open source. It's not like All-Star, as All-Star is based on Linux. This is actually hardware implementations that we're using as well. This is what we built from the ground up for amateur radio operators, by amateur radio operators, where All-Star started as a Linux implementation of a PBX system. So, Steve, you want to get into some of the tech of it?
What the All-Star, the difference between us and All-Star, or
The protocol, the M17 protocol.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm only getting part of what you're saying there, Ed.
I was asking if you would like to get into some of the technical parts of the M17 protocol.
Oh, sure, I'd be glad to. It's one of the things I like to talk about. Now, one of the things that y'all are able to see is the site redesign that we're working on. So you're getting kind of like a preemptive glimpse into some of the new things that we're putting out on our website and everything. But here we can go ahead and read the specification, and a basic summary is. I hope that this is large enough. So the M17 protocol is completely open from soup to nuts. So basically, from the actual protocol over the air, as well as a vocoder that we're using for the digital voice side of it, everything is completely open source. So you don't have to worry about any sort of patents or copyright or royalties or anything, to a commercial entity that would come with using something like Ambi from DVSI or something like that. We try to make this as simple as possible for everybody to understand and implement. It's I'd like to kind of describe it as a conglomeration of P25 and D-Star, where D-Star is very simple, generally very simple to use, and P25 for the modulation, because they use 4FSK, C4FM-ish kind of thing like we're doing. It's completely capable of doing everything that you would expect a digital mode to do. So voice, obviously digital voice, data. So you'll be able to do packet data over M17, do all kinds of telemetry stuff. And it's also extensible, so we can add more things on as we see fit. But the if I scroll down here, the physical layer of this is a 4-level frequency shift keying, commonly called 4FSK, at 4,800 symbols a second, 9,600 bits a second. So people call that 9,600 baud. So this is one of the important things about M17 is that it is currently too fast for HF. And not only that, but even though the FCC is considering removing the baud rate limit on HF, we're still a little too wide, because currently M17 is 9 kilohertz. So if they get rid of the baud rate, and go to 2.8 kilohertz, we would probably have to come up with a completely different modulation for HF, because right now it's currently 9 kilohertz wide. But it's, you got your 4 symbols, basically encodes the bits into audio frequencies, the typical FM transmission, and all the technical information that is above my head is here in the specification. We've got everything from describing the physical layer, the data link layer, application layer. So if you're familiar with the OSI layer system, that's what we're looking at right there. We do IP networking, much like all the other digital voice modes that are out there. D-Star, DMR, they all have IP networking built into it. One of the great things about the M17 protocol is you don't need to register your call sign to get an ID on the network. Your call sign is your ID. We encode your call sign into base 40 so that it can be transmitted over the air. Anybody can receive that base 40 encoded call sign, and it will display on the screen. There's no registration systems like DMR where you get an ID and then that ID has to translate to a call sign, et cetera, et cetera. D-Star requires a registration in order to get onto their network, so we don't require any sort of registration for getting into the M17 network. As long as you have a valid call, your call will pass through the system. It also goes, the documents also go into the randomizer, the convolutional encoder, GoLay, all that other fun stuff. And the one part that I really enjoy a lot is the KISS protocol. So M17 does support KISS on the TNC3, the TNC4, as well as the Nucleo TNC. So if you have something like GBPQ, G8BPQ, or APRS, you could do APRS over M17. As long as there's some sort of KISS interface that you can attach to, you could use M17 as a modulation for that.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Hey, Steve, I just hold on 1 second. We have a question here anyways.
Okay.
Thank you. Going back, the difference between HF and VHF, it's not really the frequency range that's different. It's that HF digital voice uses AFSK, so it's amplitude shift modulation. In fact, the free TV uses that mode, using the same codec that this uses. So the real difference here is that on HF, we're used to using some variation of amplitude modulation. And the good news is that most of the radios on HF fully capable of AM style or sideband style modulation. And that we could do AM variation. Our FM radios on VHF will just get rid of that, you know, the limiting stage will get rid of that. So the protocol on VHF has to be FM, and it can't be based on variations of amplitude because some radios wipe it out.
Thank you.
There's only one time slot too, right? It's not.
It's a single time. Single.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's no time slotting. It's one conversation per channel. So it's channel division channel, what do they call that? CDMA? Channel division multiplex multiple access. I'm getting into cell phones now, so I'm just gonna stop before I dig myself into a hole.
So the really great thing about this is the new version of Homeroom. And because there's a lot of Linux in it, there's a lot of radio stuff, and it's all digital radio stuff. We're drawing the younger crowd of people. We're drawing the groups of younger hands from the African and Asian communities. So we're getting these younger kids, and they're really into it, and they're helping us in the back end, doing a lot of the coding and stuff, and keeping them very interested in amateur radio. So it's a big plus there. Does anybody else have any questions?
You mentioned hardware modifications for the MD380.
Yes.
What's that about?
So the hardware modification, we're removing a diode and adding a resistor, and we're running a baud wire off of one of the IC chips from one side of the radio to the other. It's all surface mount stuff. It's not a pretty modification, but it works. And it's a work in progress. I mean, it's a $99 radio. So, anybody else have any questions? If you're wondering how you might be able to get onto M17 right now, the easiest fit is the modification right there. The easiest way of getting onto M17 is via the DroidStar application. DroidStar is an application for cell phones. Upon installation, we are the only protocol that is supported natively without adding any sort of side codecs to it, because we are open codec.
What activity is on here on Long Island?
We have all on Long Island. There's okay, so there's 160 some odd reflectors worldwide. The M17 team, we use the M17 reflector. We hold a net every Friday afternoon at 1700 hours UTC. There's some very active reflectors down in Australia, over in Germany, Italy. A lot of the multi-mode repeater systems are starting to add M17 to their system, and that just involves flashing the MMDVM modem to version 1.61 of the firmware. We just got fully supported by the W0CHP dashboard. For those of you that use PyStar, anybody ever use PyStar? So W0CHP is an alternative to PyStar. It's a modernized version of PyStar, and it's been updated. PyStar has been lacking updates in the last couple of years. Chip W0CHP from Minnesota has been working with the team in getting that done. So if you download that, or if you're still using PyStar, if you look into the deep menus of PyStar, M17 is there. It can be enabled as long as you have the current firmware on your MMDVM board. And that's 1.6.1, which I don't think you can do from PyStar directly. You're gonna have to go and run a couple of Linux commands to update it. Anybody else with any questions? Yes.
Representative Nelson, the FCC's movement does law about block rate switching.
Yes, that's been on the HF bands. The board rate for HF.
That's all this stuff, right?
Well, that doesn't really affect us. We're a little too wide, so we're VHF, UHF, and above. So we've gotten a couple of grants from ARBC to help us out, help out our development, help out some of the hardware development, software development that we've worked on. So we got some of the big manufacturers are talking to us, but nobody wants to do any sort of commitment until they see you know how we're proving on the Chinese market. So
Nobody wants to be the first.
Right, nobody wants to be the first. There's also, the company I mentioned earlier was, Lilygo, Lilygo. They, manufacture a bunch of different, hardware components. They do a lot of low raw stuff. They also came out with, Steve, what's the model of it, the little handheld?
The T-Deck? Oh, no, the TTWR.
Yeah, the TTWR, it's a small handheld radio. If you can pull up a picture of that, that would be great. So
Yeah,
it looks like-
I'm looking at it right now. I'm pulling it up right now. Sorry.
Sure. And our Italian contingent, they thought that it might be a good candidate for the M17 project. They started poking around in the firmware and they saw that had a lot of potential. They reached out to Lilygo, and Lilygo released the hardware recently with and it's totally open, so it's open for experimenting. So that's something that they've written their custom firmware for that already. And they're in the process of porting M17 over to that. So I think it's like a $50 or $55 handheld. It's a tiny little thing. It runs on one of those big fat 1860 batteries. So, yes.
Bob, from our finder, he dropped, he was working on.
Yeah, so Bob from our finder, he was working on adding an M17 over IP implementation. It's on the back burner. Last I talked to Bob, he's working on this rotor stuff right now, so. That's gonna make him more money than the M17 project. And, you know, he's a businessman. You said as far as repeaters on the island, we're probably gonna add it to a 440 machine out in Suffolk County, the WR2 UHF machine. There'll be a protocol out there, probably in the next 3 or 4 months. So this is the handheld I was talking about, it's $51. And hopefully in the next 6 months or so, you'll be able to pick one of those up and flash the current firmware onto it. It's also a project that we're talking with the EWRL about adding to their teachers institute in the near future. To help out the teachers up there and have them explore some of the open source software and review projects that are out there. Anyone else have any questions? Yes.
I guess, are you a low signal to noise protocol like FT8, or basically is your range the same as an FM signal?
It's pretty much the range is a digital signal. It's either there or it's not. So same thing with the MR. Rich?
So Stephen said this is UID that's been modified already for M17.
No, it's not modified yet.
It's not modified yet.
No, but I have it for sale out here.
It's only modified. So you must have a repeater for M17. Once you have the repeater set up, now you're in the DMR type system.
Correct. So you would run on a MMDVM board, one of the multi-function boards. So the typical board, you can flip the switch and you can put on DMR, D-Star, or P25, M17, and XDM. So the machine I was talking about is the WR2 UHF Press Waterman's machine out in Suffolk County.
He actually has 3 machines that do that, so.
Yeah, well, WR2 UHF is the big one. So that's the one we're probably gonna be adding M17 on in the next couple of months.
So once you have the M17 though, now you're connected via the internet to go out.
It's basically just like the MR, yeah.
Okay, and now, because in the beginning it was a little confusing. So what is the advantage now that M17 is offering over, let's say, a DMR or?
So we're open source. We're open source, we're open for experimenting. You can take our protocol and you can implement it any way you wish. It's right now, it's a protocol for experimenters. We're getting back to the grassroots of amateur radio, and that's experimenting.
So, well, let's say you have a radio, you set it up for this, and you're on Preston's machine.
Sure.
You're not gonna be connected to his wall star, you're not gonna be connected to.
Now we're gonna be connected to the M17 reflector system.
Yeah,
Like I said, there's currently 160 some odd reflectors worldwide. For M17, each one of those reflectors has 26 different modules that you can connect to. So it's a similar layout to how these starts. Excuse me, George.
Open source requires a framework of some kind to begin with. That means that your application program interface has some sort of a hardware basis underneath it. So my question is, what does that look like? Is it published? And
So our total-
does it compare to EMR or Fusion or D-Star?
If you go to our GitHub, our protocol is laid out there, there's a PDF version of it, everything is laid out.
Yeah.
Everything's all, if you want to dig deeper, you can go into codec 2 and hit that GitHub, you can see how that codec works. And that's the beauty of open source and amateur radio. Everything's laid out, all the code is there for you. Take it and do what you want with it. Implement it any way you see. We've had members of the community that have, come up with their own hardware. I got a gentleman that is a Spaniard living in England who came up with a piece of hardware. He uses, instead of a Raspberry Pi, he uses an Orange Pi board, and he's running something called M17 Client. M17 Client, if anybody that's into digital radio who knows Jonathan Naylor and G4KLX, Jonathan Naylor pretty much wrote the MMDVM protocol. So Jonathan's part of our team. He's always implementing, the updates to M17 into MMDVM. And he just got picked up by one of the manufacturers of MMDVM board, ZoomSpot. ZoomSpot is an MMDVM board based out of California. Jim KI6ZUM, he's the manufacturer, and he's been fully supporting M17 as well. Yes.
I have a Shark at home and I can crisscross different modes and stuff, and I find that nothing really goes very well with D-Star. I know that Fusion and EMR kind of play nice, both the volume on the audio is different. Which
So we currently cross mode into DMR right now, D2 Fusion. We've played around with an NXDN. I don't think we still have an NXDN bridge up, and
We do.
All-Star. NXDN bridge is still up, so right now we're crossing into DMR, NXDN, Fusion, and into All-Star.
And P25.
And P25.
We've covered pretty much all the digital radio modes because of Tony. He was able to bridge all of those because he has the transcoding chip that's available for it.
The future is looking bright. We're doing a lot of development. Like I said, we have an open handheld that's being developed right now, being worked on by a gentleman in Belgium and our founder in Poland. So, and Jake out in Texas. So that's FPGA based. Doing a lot of work on that. Starting to polish that up, and hopefully we'll see that into a working protocol and a working device in the next 6 months or so. Yeah.
I'm selling this radio, by the way.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in buying an unmodified MD380, he's got one for sale over here for $85.
It's like with this extra battery.
With an extra battery. So if anybody wants to get into it, all the instructions are on openrtx.com. You can follow along, do the modification. Anybody else have any questions? Steve, you have anything to add?
Yeah, just that we have our weekly nets on Friday at 1700 UTC. That takes place on the M17 reflector module Charlie. But up on the screen here, I've got all the other interlinks. So we have All-Star links, an Echo link, free DMR, D-Star, Fusion, NXDN, P25, and IRLP. So if you don't have an M17 capable system or radio available, we have a whole bunch of different ways of getting into that weekly net. Usually we do a little bit of updates. We talk about the new advances and new things that we're working on the project. People use it as a way to test out their equipment to see if everything's working well. Good group of people. I think the last one that I did, we had 23 people, and they were all over the world. We had who's the other Australian guy? Starts with a D. Dale. I think his name's Dale. We had a couple people from Germany. We had somebody check in from Belgium. Obviously, Wojciech checked in from Poland. And it's always a good group of people, always a good conversation that happens on our weekly nets. So if you're available around 1700 UTC on a Friday, hop onto the net and check in.
the information there is on our website at M17Project.org. Actually, this is like this might be our Twitter account or our X account. The team's been doing a lot of work. They went to Friedrichshafen to ham radio in Germany in June, a field day weekend. They were at the Tokyo Ham Fest. We were at Old Nation Ham Fest this year, except for one down in Alabama, down in one side. So we will have a booth down in Orlando. We'll have some hardware demonstration. We'll have a booth in Dayton. The guys just came back a couple of weeks ago from the Pacificon out in California. They're at the Tokyo Ham Fest and showing off all their stuff.
Yeah, here in the picture, I just wanted to kind of go over the picture here. This was from Pacificon. So this is a handful of team members. So we got K5JAE on the left there. His name's Jay. He's from Texas. He's doing a bunch of development on the OpenHT. Next to him is Silvano, IU2KWO, I believe. He's one of the OpenRTX guys. Next to him is Jerry Ellsworth. So if you're familiar with anybody that does like electronics entrepreneurship and big into open source, Jerry Ellsworth, she came by the table and visited with us. And standing next to her is Wojciech, SP5WWP. Next to that guy in the short one with the bald head like Ed, that's me. Behind me is Morgan, ON4MOD. He's working on the module 17 and also playing around with the OpenHT. And then we have Wojciech's wife there at the end. It was a great time out there in Pacificon. Check out our Twitter. We have a lot of photos there for the different places that we've gone. And, we do post a lot of updates and everything. So if you're not in our Discord, you can always follow along with our Twitter and keep apprised to anything new that's happening in the project.
All right, any questions?
So,
Great.
again, understand, so when it's open source, it's something that somebody who's computer literate and programming is going to be more involved with than the average amateur who's usually who might say, I have an idea that I'd like to implement.
Well, now you didn't, not just our code is open source, all our hardware is open source too. So we release all of our Gerber files online. You can go and you can order these boards directly from like GCP, GCL PCB or something, or PCB way. All our files are there. And, anybody in this room can go home, click on the link and order 5 boards and have them sent to your house. Mostly fully populated. So
someone might have an idea and with help might be able to implement that idea.
I'm sorry, repeat that question?
Again, I'm saying the average amateur who's out here, when you have something so open source, we assume it's something involving programming with open source. Now it's hardware. Somebody can have an idea and with help from more experienced people, actually carry that idea into fruition.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of this project. We've had that before. We've had people getting suggestions, people adding snippets of code, and we've taken on and we've added to our protocol and whatnot. So it's the beauty of open source. Everything's there.
Like we like to say, this is a project and open source community by amateur radio for amateur radio. Even though you may not, we understand that not everybody has the technical skill to do the programming. I certainly don't, but I always give feedback to the development team and they implement things that, carry weight. So, if you've got an idea of something that you want to see into the protocol or see into our hardware, let us know and we'll do our best to implement, the ideas that come to us.
And by no means am I anywhere near on the technical level that the rest of the team is. I'm the community manager. They use me for my pretty face and I get to go around, I get to talk to different groups and go into different YouTube channels and speak to those people about the project. So, but if anybody's interested in joining, we're always looking for people that are doing any sort of hardware development or any sort of coding or anything like that. So I said, we're an open source community of amateur radio operators that are looking just to build a better, understandable radio system for the future. And like I said, due to the fact that there is a lot of computer work, there is a lot of Linux in the background, we are gaining a lot of younger hands, a lot of from the hacker and maker community. So it's been a lot of fun, got to meet a lot of great people. Going to all these different ham fests around the country, I'll see people I've seen people in Orlando, I've seen them again in Dayton, I've seen them again in New Hampshire. We always have a table up at Near Fest in New Hampshire, twice a year. We've been there for like the last 3 or 4 years. And, we get people coming by and people that have heard us on podcasts or heard us on, who read about us or saw us on YouTube videos. They come by, they check out, and they get to physically see some of the hardware that we've been working on. And they see how it's changed over the years, so. Anybody else have any questions? Steve, anything to add?
Well, you know me, I've always got something to add, but I think I'll spare everyone the waffling that I usually do.
All right, Steve, thank you. I know you just came over from work, so you want to go grab something to eat, I'll finish it up.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, just one more question, I guess. I know it's gotta be difficult dealing with some of the manufacturers. But realistically, I think a lot of people will start using M17 once it's easy to use for them and already packaged in there.
Oh,
I will go radio.
absolutely. Right now, we're at the experimenter stage. You want to get your hands dirty a little bit. And Rich, like you were saying with the whole open source thing, once this starts taking off a little bit more, all the Chinese manufacturers have access to all of our boards. So they're gonna be out there. It's gonna be, that handheld's gonna come already modified. So it's just a matter of time, and that will help us.
Yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for interfaces to those radios?
What type of an interface?
Well, there's 2 companies, there's APIs and there's.
So we have somebody in our team, we have one of the other members of our team, he is working on some API work for those radios. He's adding a little bit more features to the firmware. We're gonna have some satellite tracking stuff in it. M17 has been used over in Europe on the birds, on the QO100, which is satellite, it's a low orbit satellite that's only available over in England there, so. Do you have a question? No, okay. I think that's it then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rich, you gotta do the things first. I want to put it on. I'm only doing it for 13 years. I mean, and yeah, my question is.